Here we have a Boss SD1 overdrive pedal. It's a very familiar looking pedal and shape, and chances are if it was green, you'd recognize it a lot more on people's pedal boards. But chances are you very rarely see this when you're on Instagram geeking out on people's pedal boards, and I've never really understood why, because these sound fantastic. Hello, Mike Bradley here. Hope you are doing well as always. Yes, the Boss SD1 overdrive pedal. Why is it not more popular? Now, before we get into it, I just want to go through the formalities. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. It really means a lot to me and will help kind of build the little community that we have built already together. So do think about hitting that subscribe button. And also check out my website, mikebradleymusic.com, where you can get some original music from me, which you can also get on Spotify. You can get some t-shirts, you can get some online lessons, which are not available on other online retail. You can download the videos and whatnot from my website. So do check out my website, mikebradleymusic.com. All the links will be below, and it'll really mean a lot to me. Now, this yellow box, the Boss SD1 overdrive pedal, I've had this since I was a teenager. I've had this pedal for over 20 years. It was the third pedal, I believe, I ever got. And I got it just as I joined my first band, and I bought myself a Marshall head, the Marshall DSL 100, and a Marshall cab, and I needed and wanted to get a pedal to kind of help boost me for volumes for solos and whatnot. Now, this was the early 2000s, so the internet for me was in its early stages for talking about gear, but two players in particular who helped sway me in getting the Boss SD1. Now, one shouldn't come as any shock if you're a regular viewer to my channel, and that is Richie Sambora. Now, in the 80s, 90s and 2000s, you would have seen this yellow box on his pedal board. Still to this day, there isn't much info on what Richie used gear wise, but you always saw this yellow box, you know, the good old Boss SD1 on his board, whether he was using the big Bradshaw rack or if he was just, you know, using a smaller pedal board. He always had this. So as he was such a huge influence in my early years, Richie helped sway me to get one. And the other guy who influenced me in getting one was Phil Hilborn. Now, Phil Hilborn was a huge contributor to Guitarist magazine, especially in the early days, and setting it all up, and Guitar Techniques magazine, and is a bit of a legend in the rock blues scene in England. I used to frequently go on his website and would geek out on all his gear, and on his pedal board, this big old pedal board he had a Boss SD1 pedal. I must have been 16 or 17, and I would message him all sorts of questions, and he would get back to me and he said, yep, the Boss SD1 is great. So I thought, fantastic. I went ahead, I phoned up Manson's Guitar Shop, which is now owned by Matt Bellamy, and I ordered this very Boss SD1. As you can tell, it is pretty knackered. It's got lots of tone dust in there as well. Now the playing clip you saw at the beginning, I was using the Boss SD1 and changing the settings each time, and I had the Boss DD3 for a bit of slapback going into my Hampstead amp. Now I've always preferred using the SD1 when the amp is breaking up. When I was a lot younger I would play with a lot more gain, but as I've grown up I've backed a bit off now on the gain front. But for me it really helps the tone when the valves are nice and hot and then you're just hitting this pedal and it really makes things bloom. So that you can see what I'm talking about here, let's do a little comparison. So at the moment we're going to do with the amp like on a clean setting. So I've got the gain pretty much off on my Hampstead amp. Is like I guess what that would be, like 7 o'clock there, like on 1 or 2, and then I've got the master volume up to about 1 o'clock, so it's going to be quite a clean sound here. Now I'm going to kick the Boss SD1 in, and hopefully you can see by the power of editing, I've got the level at 1 o'clock and the drive at like 10 o'clock with the tone at about 1 o'clock, and that's where I've always left it really, the tone at 1 o'clock there. So if I kick this in, you're going to get this sound now, which is still cool. Now let me do a similar thing, but now I'm going to put the gain on the amp to where I kind of want it, and you'll see what I was talking about. So now on the Hampstead, I've got the gain at 12 o'clock and the master volume just under 12 o'clock. And the SD1 is set exactly the same. So level at 1 o'clock, drive just under 10 o'clock, and then tone still at 1 o'clock. And so here's the amp. So you can hear there's a lot more bass there just by turning up the gain and the master. Not so much that there's more overdrive, it's just a bit more oomph going on. And that's how I like to set my amp, and then I can clean it up on my volume control. Now if I put the volume on 10, kick in the SD1, that's what I mean, right? So having the amp kind of cooking a bit, kicking the SD1, and to me, that's where it really comes alive. I've often wondered why this pedal isn't talked about as much as the Ibanez Tube Screamer. Now I say that, I already know the answer to that, and that is 3 initials, SRV. Yes, Mr. Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now I expect you already know this, but obviously Stevie used a Tube Screamer I think throughout his whole career, starting off with a TS-808 and then moving on to a TS-9, and then I think right near the end of his life unfortunately he was using a TS-10. Now if Stevie happened to pick up an SD1 instead of the Tube Screamer, I have no doubt in my mind that these pedals will be double the price now, if not more. They are so similar, they both give that mid-boost hump, but for me personally, I prefer the SD1. The character of the pedal just suits my ears. Now it amazes me how affordable these are, and I should say this is not an ad or anything like that, this is just giving my personal opinion on this pedal. It amazes me how affordable these are. Now when I got mine over 20 years ago, scarily, it was £39. Which is crazy. And now I believe, I looked online and they're like 69, so they've kind of doubled in 20 years. But in guitar terms, guitar world terms, that's still pretty affordable for a pedal, £69. And if you look at a TS-808, that's going for like £189, which I think is absolutely crazy. I still can't believe they're that expensive. And you know what? Still to this day, after playing guitar for over 26 years, I've never owned a Tube Screamer. I have pedals which are very much influenced by the Tube Screamer, but I've never owned the real deal. And to be honest, I don't think I will. I mean, never say never, but at the end of the day, the TS-808 is a transparent overdrive, which will sound different depending on the amp you're going through. And that's exactly what that is. So for now, I'll certainly be sticking with my SD1. Now, if you've never played through one of these, I really recommend that you do. Next time you buy a guitar shop or you're in a guitar shop, check one out. And I think you'll be amazed at how great these pedals are. And actually, I saw the other day, John Frusciante now has one of these on his pedal board. And also Prince, if you see Prince's pedal board, it's all Boss pedals. And Prince didn't sound too shabby on the guitar, did he? Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Are you a Boss SD1 fan? Or are you not a Boss SD1 fan? Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It'd be really great to hear what you all think. And I love looking through comments and stuff like that, especially when it's geeky gear stuff like this. So do let me know what your thoughts are. And I will see you in the next video. I've been Mike Bradley, you've been you. Thank you very much for joining me. And I hope you're very well as always. And I'll see you soon. Mike Bradley signing out. Bye.